Today's episode of Tiling Connect is brought to you by Lux's Grates, the leaders in aluminium drainage, which are UV stable, rust proof and customisable on site. Available in your local tile or plumbing shop.
Hey everybody, Mark here from Tiling Connect. Welcome back to the program. Very lucky and fortunate to have another amazing guest join us today. I have David Cullen, who is the CEO of Caesarstone Australia, join us today. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mark. Happy to be talking to you today.
Excellent, mate. Yeah, look, I'm glad that you were able to give us some time. I know that you've been with Caesarstone for some time. I think 14 years. I read earlier. Maybe could be a little bit longer, but I'm sure you'll share that with us. But yeah, look, it really wanted to get Caesarstone on the program. They're a massive player in the building and construction space in Australia, providing engineered stone surfaces. And I know there's been a lot of debate in the last sort of 6 to 12 months around changes in that space with a lot of the products. So I thought, what better time than to get you on to first meet you and find out a little bit about yourself and Caesarstone and deep dive into some really, really good questions today.
Sure. Happy to share our overview and a little bit of our history at the same time, maybe.
Yeah, awesome. Love it, mate. Love it. David, look, how about we just start at the beginning? Give us a bit of a background on you, mate. Tell us about yourself and the company and how it's all going.
Sure. I started with the business in 2010, so a touch over 14 years with the company. We started in Australia around 2000 thereabouts. There were a few containers that arrived from over in Europe early 2000, and we started to build the business. Started to make a dent in the industry in terms of this is a great substitute opportunity, particularly back in those days with marble and granite. This was a product that provided a very low maintenance with inspirational design, and we were able to build on that over the years. We were through a distributor. Actually, in the early days, we were distributed through Harvey Norman. So Jerry Harvey actually owned the distribution business
right.
up until about 2008. And as I always say to distributors, unfortunately, for better or worse, the better job you do, the more likely you're going to be replaced by a company going direct. And they did a good job back in the early days, but they probably were never going to invest the way we needed to invest from a marketing point of view and from a growth perspective. So we mutually agreed around 2008 that we would go direct. So we went direct. I came on board about 18 months later, and we started to expand interstate, South Australia, Western Australia, building bigger distribution centres, building showrooms around Australia, and taking the business to where it is today.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Like making that transition from a distribution model to a direct model. Did you find that there was any particular hurdles that you had to get over that stood out during that transitional period?
Oh, I think the main hurdles were probably just getting the market to understand what we're all about as a direct player as opposed to a distributor. And the message that I was putting out there is, look, we're more prepared to invest in the business moving forward. We're looking at it from a long-term perspective. Distributors often do great jobs, but they don't necessarily look at the business from a 10, 20, 30-year perspective because they're never quite sure where they stand in 10, 20, 30 years. So it was more about we're here for the long term. All the attributes that have made us successful to date, we're going to continue with. We're going to capitalise further. We're going to be more innovative. We're going to create more demand in the marketplace, which is a big part of what our role is to actually create demand with inspirational products and then drive that demand to our customers, whether they be builders, whether they be kitchen companies, developers, fabricators, etc., through the whole channel.
Yeah, right. So I've noticed, on the website, I saw there that obviously you're a global player, and the footprint's pretty massive. How does the Australian position sit versus the global position in terms of reach and getting locations? I mean, are you in every state in Australia, and how does that look?
Yes, we have a distribution centre in every state of Australia. We have usually two showrooms in every state of Australia, so that we can allow customers, consumers, allow builders, architects, retailers, etc., to drive their customers into those showrooms, so they can see full size slabs, they can see full size kitchens, they can see latest colours, they can get the expertise from our showroom people. From a historical point of view, we've grown that year on year. So we tend to, with distribution centres, you tend to overcapitalise initially because you have to, and then towards the end of your lease, you haven't got enough space, so you have those challenges. But we do invest for the long term. We generally lock away a facility for up to 8 years, and then towards the end of that 8 years, we start to look at, okay, how can we develop further? But in terms of the market, we're the market leader in Australia. We arguably have, in excess of 40% market share. It's a difficult thing to measure. There's a lack of information. There's no import statistics. We actually get put in with, from an import point of view, put in with tiles. So, and there's a lot of tiles brought into the country. So it's very difficult to see true market position. But we have a good, decent understanding from penetration, etc., and from analysis in the market. The company itself started in 1987. In Israel. We commenced the category. So we started off with a tile business and then worked out that, it was very competitive in that space. And with the technical expertise, we ended up coming up with a quartz-based product, which had lots of fantastic attributes, etc. So we started. Australia today is the second largest subsidiary for the group. We're a public company. We're listed on the NASDAQ. We're number two. America, as you would imagine, is number one. But certain months we give them a run for their money as well at the same time. So the business has done well in Australia, but we've still got to keep working on it. There's plenty of competition out there and lots of challenges. And I suppose for all of us, the last 5 years or so, from COVID all the way through to the silicosis challenges, and just the general market building industry, etc. There's never a dull moment.
Yeah, we're certainly experiencing a lot of ups and downs, and at the moment, particularly with silicosis and silica dust and all of those sorts of things, and on the back end of COVID as well. While health and wellbeing and awareness of the dangers of silica dust are incredibly important, I think some of the decisions that have been made have made it incredibly difficult very quickly, and there hasn't been a lot of time to react and be proactive. It's been a very bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, in some cases, and that's just my opinion. But I've worked very heavily in that space, in the tooling space, for about 5 years, and there's been a lot of campaigns around trying to protect workers from dust and the harmful parts of what silica dust can do to the lungs. But I'm sure we'll deep dive into that shortly. But mate, very interesting that you guys are giving America a run for the money. I mean, they've 360 million people versus 25. That's a pretty big achievement.
Yeah, so America is also obviously very competitive because of the size of the market, etc. And we're well established. We started about 5 years earlier in Australia, and what we tended to do in Australia is just try and add more value every year to the business, and try and keep increasing penetration in the market, increase market demand, increase recognition. So we've got it to the stage where most consumers, if they are looking for a brand in our category, the first name that they'll come up with generally is, and often the only name, is Caesarstone. Our challenge always is, and probably more so in the last 6 or 7 years, is it's got more competitive, and China has, as they do, they've increased quality, they've increased their innovation, they've introduced some technology, etc. They get better and better. So, and what we generally find is, whether it's Chinese or other competitors, they normally just copy what we do and do it at a lower price. Which is, everyone's got their business model, and that's fair enough. So we have to be faster on our feet and more innovative, and more designs faster, and but those designs have to be obviously inspirational, also something that consumers desire. So we've put a lot of focus on the R&D side of our business, and making sure that we've got a product that people do want in their homes.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I mean, look, calling the white elephant in the room for what it is. I mean, in December 2023, the Australian government announced a ban on engineered stone products, which I think officially takes full effect on the 1st of July 2024. I know there were some preliminary bans and things going on, and Australia being one of the first countries in the world to make that sort of ban on a global stage was pretty significant. How has this impacted Caesarstone, and how has the company pivoted its product range to maintain customer supply with compatible products?
Yeah, it has been, as you say, it's been a very challenging period, mainly because there's been a lack of consultation throughout the whole process. Unfortunately, and there's positives and negatives, but because we're a federation, every state has a say. And every state may react differently. And even up till today, we have no understanding in some states as to what the rules are. There is no regulation. The regulations have not been put in place formally. So we do not exactly know what we're supposed to comply with. And this is effective, as you say, from the 1st of July. We have different transition periods in different states. Victoria, Queensland, there is no transition period. The rest of Australia, except for the ACT, as well, but the rest of Australia, there is a transition period. We have builders that work across and fabricators, multiple states. And so there's complete confusion everywhere. And the one thing we asked for last year, and just to reflect a little bit, 6 years ago, we put a proposal together to have a licensing system in place nationally. And we said at the time that our belief was, and I pulled all our competitors together around a table and said, look, you can see the vibe, feel the vibe that's happening out there in the marketplace. We need to do something more than what we're doing. And, every state in Australia agreed the product can be handled safely. It just must be handled safely. And unfortunately, we've got that 5 or 10% that most industries have, where they just don't do the right thing. And that 5 or 10% ends up on the front pages. And as you know, the media loves negativity. So the negativity, started to drive a result. But very frustratingly, we put on a complete license. We spent a year developing a licensing system, which we put on the table. And we were told by the ACCC that they would not allow it to happen because they believed it was cartel activity. Which was interesting when the only requirement we had was that the fabricators had to prove to us independently that they were handling the product safely. That's the only requirement we had. We pulled together a whole series of information, fabrication manuals in 7 different languages, training processes, online systems to educate fabricators. But unfortunately, in their wisdom, the government / ACCC decided we weren't allowed to do it. And funny enough, 4 or 5 years later, Victoria introduced a licensing system. No other state has actually followed. So very frustrating in terms of where it's ended up. And, as we've seen we're the only country that's actually banned engineered stone. No one else has. California's looked at it, and California said what we have to investigate is all silica-based product. And as I'm sure you're aware, tiles have silica, bricks have silica, high content silica. Concrete has silica. There's a whole series of industries with silica to the stage where the Cancer Society actually said there's 600,000 people exposed to silica in Australia per year. There's 7,000 fabricators in our industry. So we're focusing on 7,000 and there's no mention of the other 593,000. So that's our frustration, but it is where it is. And we've had to move. We've had a very difficult, costly 12 months where we've moved from 90% silica content to 40 on the basis that we're on the understanding from the government that 40% would be acceptable, a much lower level of silica. Then we were advised, okay, that's now not acceptable. And we started looking at 10% products. We moved to 10%. Then we were told, no, that's not acceptable. Then we were told 0 was the only option. And this was in October, November last year, with very little detail, with a 30 June drop dead date this year. So we had to again move very quickly and change our entire production, which we've done now. So we've introduced crystalline silica-free product, which is predominantly made up of glass as opposed to crystalline silica or quartz. And it's an amorphous silica product, so it won't give you silicosis. It still has dust, and we still educate people. Look. And what I've never quite understood is someone sitting in front of the media saying for 20 years I've breathed this in and I'm now sick and I can't believe it. It's very frustrating. It's like who does that?
Yeah.
Most of us know, and most of us should know, and we try to educate people, whatever the dust is, don't breathe it in. It doesn't matter what it is, don't breathe it in. Wear the right PPE. But anyway, we've moved on, and we've invested significantly in our factories. We've introduced a new product. The big positive out of the new product is we've been able to get majority of the colours to look exactly the same as the previous colours, or within a batch difference, if you like. So we have 33 colours we've introduced from 48. They look extremely similar, if not exactly the same as the previous colours, which is now going to allow us to invest further in new technology and also new product development as we move forward. We have different options that we can look at and are looking at in terms of how we expand that range. So a zero product has been introduced, and we brought that to the market a couple of months ago, and we've sold quite a lot of products so far. There's no issues. The quality of the product is the same. The performance of the product is the same. In some cases, it's actually better than the old product. And it was a position, like our R&D guys said, it was almost impossible to get to zero and get the same benefits, because you can always produce a product, but if it doesn't perform, doesn't have that low maintenance positioning, and it doesn't look like a product that you want in your home, then consumers are not going to buy it. So we had to tick all the boxes, which we've done.
Yeah, and I imagine that aesthetically pleasing part is massive in terms of trying to emulate what Caesarstone has been all about for the last 30 plus years.
Yes, no, 100%. Probably the two big things are, ease of maintenance in your home, and a fantastic looking benchtop that performs. It's scratch proof, it's non-porous, that has all the attributes of the previous product, which is what we've been able to do and achieve. So that's been a great result. At the same time, about 2 years ago, we launched a porcelain range. So we've got upwards of 30 plus colours now in our porcelain range, from 12 mil through to 20 mil in a variety of colours and finishes, which has also been very positive. So between our porcelain range and our zero range, we think we're in a very good position. It's been difficult getting there, but we're there now. We're moving forward, and I think one positive out of the whole thing, outside of all that, is just the fact that it takes it off the front pages. We could never win that emotional battle, unfortunately. As much as we've done a lot in the industry, and no matter what we've done, you look back and say, well, we should have done more, and maybe we should have fought the Ace and Triple C, and we should have done a lot of other things, but in hindsight. But we're now moving forward. I think the industry now can move forward with a high degree of confidence, and we're not so concerned about that negative front page, I suppose, that does some damage to the industry generally.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, it's a very positive position and steps that Caesarstone and yourself have taken to introduce a new product that can obviously do all of the same things and look great and be appealing to the marketplace. And you're right, like it's very easy to get caught in that space of, well, look, let's just keep focusing on the rules that have changed, and let's try and stay in that emotional battle where we try and change the minds of the government. But I've never seen in the history of anything happen in the building and construction game where that's actually occurred. So good on you for doing that. And I imagine that all of these wonderful products are in all the showrooms and they can be seen and looked at.
Yes, they are. Some of the colours, the newer colours, are just rolling out now, but we have upwards of 20 colours in place, with more colours starting to come through very quickly. So between now and the end of probably September, we'll have the full range. What we've done initially is, and we've always had the biggest challenge because we're the biggest player in the market, so we have the most volume that we have to protect. So I took a view of making sure that we could cover 85% of the market, and a big percentage of it is in certain colours and certain price points. So we made sure that we could cover that 85% to protect our partners. And if there's a small number of reselections because of that 15%, then so be it. But at least we've covered the volume of the market and taken most of the pain off the table. But it's been a big education process as well, because of what's happened and the skeptical nature of people in terms of what the government's done and the lack of communication and uncertainty. people tend to stand back and they get worried about this is a new product, and it is actually a new product. So they want to know more about it. They want to know that the testing has been done, which we've fully completed, and we've done it in Australian labs rather than overseas labs, which we've completed in it as well. But we thought it was important to make sure we had multiple Australian labs signing off on the product. That it's got a less than 1% silica base, and the only reason they use 1% is just because of potential contamination if it's with other product. The materials have no crystalline silica in them at all. So we've gone through all that, and as we say, it's positive moving forward. And there's not much you can do about the past. As frustrating as a lot of it has been, and when you have your politics, but when you have a complete Labor government, you got a CFMEU on top of it, then you're not going to win that battle. So.
No. It's a tough one, mate. I lived in Victoria for 2 years during COVID, and there was as many battles being played out on the field then, and no one was winning but Labor. So it was.
Well, you probably didn't see much of Victoria in that 2 year period, I imagine.
Mate, no, look, I became quite accustomed with the four walls of the house that I was living in at the time of the unit, and unfortunately they're all white, so it felt like a bit of an insane asylum. So it was,
frustrating time.
There was a lot of self-reflection in that 2 years. I don't know how much came out of it, but I'm alive. I'm alive today.
You're still with us. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. And the podcast was born, so that was probably one of the great things that's come out of it, which was really good. Mate, look, I imagine that through that journey and implementing these new products, there would have been, and because of the fast approach of changes in legislation, you would have been sitting on a whole bunch of stock. So, was that a revenue buster for you guys, or were you able to shift that into another market and try and keep costs expenses low on that piece?
It's definitely been a challenge, and we took a view of trying to protect our customer base at the same time, because there was no way that you could get the new product quick enough to satisfy the market demand. And as such, we took a view of bringing, others decided to stop bringing silica products in and to wait. But the problem was the market's still there. People still want their kitchens put in place. People still want new homes built and with kitchens, and up until 30 June, we're still allowed to put the silica-based product in. Now, handled the right way, obviously, but because of the fact we just had no lead time from the government, it was almost impossible. And one of the things I said to the government at the time, going back in October, November, just before the announcement, I said, whatever happens here, we may disagree, but what we need is a consultation period. Get industry around a table, building industry, material suppliers, fabricators, whoever you need to get around the table to thrash out the issues that we're likely to be presented with. And unfortunately, none of that happened. And we're still waiting for decisions in some states. So, it's been difficult from that point of view. We've got till 30 June. Victoria and Queensland is probably more challenging just because there's no transition period. So as of 30 June, the one positive, I suppose, is the fact that from 30 June, we can only sell non-silica-based product in those two states. In the rest of Australia, we can sell silica-based product if it's subject to a contract that existed before 31 December last year. Now, the complications of that are even more intense because some states are now telling us, well, we're responsible to make sure that those contracts exist and that we've got copies of the contracts. Now, the contracts are between generally a builder and a consumer. We're selling to fabricators who might sell to a kitchen company, who might sell to a builder. We're like 3 or 4 parts removed, yet we're responsible. So we're challenged. But generally, from a stock point of view, we've decided to take the hit to some extent. We will move a lot of stock out of, not a lot, but a decent number of slabs of stone out of Victoria and Queensland, probably into New South Wales towards the end of June. And then ideally, we're going to be selling the balance of what we got between now and December. If we can't, we will then look at, what other markets do we potentially move it to? But the aim is to minimise that as much as possible and to move through the stock. But, I feel for fabricators as well. Fabricators are sitting there with, hundreds and hundreds of tonnes of offcuts that they can't use.
Can't use it.
And stock potentially that they also can't use. And you're talking, 1,000 fabrication companies in Australia who are going to be caught, and there's no government incentive credits or anything to support them through that process. And from a training point of view, we're the only ones that have done training. My friends in the unions talk about their support of the industry, etc. I'm not aware of one training program that's been put in place other than the training programs that we're putting in place, which again is one of those frustrating topics, but it is what it is, and we'll move through the stock and we'll move through the transition, and overall I think we'll be a better business, but we've had a lot of ups and downs.
Are you looking for a water drainage solution that serves its purpose and adds a touch of elegance to your space? Lux's Grates are here to revolutionise your indoor and outdoor spaces. Whether it's your shower, bathroom, balcony, pool, or any other area, Lux's Grates is the ideal choice. It's quick and easy installation that you can bang out in just over an hour. Their standard grates offer a classic and timeless look, while the next generation style adds a modern twist. Lux's Grates are made of high quality anodised aluminium, ensuring durability and longevity.
David, how big is a workforce in Australia that you're currently leading?
We've got 130 people in Australia.
Right.
So that's across 5 distribution centres and 8 showrooms around Australia. So it's it's a relatively small number if you break it down state by state. But we've got a lot of people who are very passionate about the product, very passionate about the industry and the business. And as I said, I say to people often, I was running Komatsu's forklift business. Before I started with Caesarstone, and you sit around the table at dinner, and people would ask you what you did. Well, I'm running a forklift business. They go right next. Now we sit around the table. What are you doing in the kitchen business? Who do you work for? Caesarstone. I've got Caesarstone, and it's one of those subjects which people get very emotional and passionate about, which is exactly what happens with our people. So it's a great industry to be in from that point of view, because everyone wants a fantastic kitchen. And, Australia is very different to Europe because our kitchens are much larger. It's the centre of the house, and we eat at home a lot. Europe, small kitchens, and everyone eats out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, mate, just picking up on what you've shared then, talking about a number of 130, it's still a large group, right? And a lot of people in the business. How did this particular topic affect you as a leader, and what did you have to do differently to rally the troops to get, because this is a big change, right? It's massive in terms of a business change. And I can imagine, I've been in sales for 22 years now in the building product space, and I've worked for some major companies. And when culture change happens, people just lose it. They're like, what? We can't sell this product anymore. So what did you have to do to bring that together and keep moving in that positive direction?
Yeah, it was, as you indicated, it was challenging. And, if you look at what happened before it with COVID, so we had, 2.5 years of COVID leading into it. Then we had 18 months of silicosis media, which was extremely negative. And then we had a government telling us that the product was about to be banned with no detail. So people are people, and people get a bit negative, and people were not sure about their jobs. People were not sure about the industry. So what I had to do, and my team had to do, is to make sure we over communicated and we were honest. We were working on products. We talked to people about the 40% product, and that was all fantastic. And then all of a sudden that's banned. So we went through so many ups and downs with the 90 to the 40 to the 10 and then to the 0, and then having to produce the 0 on top of it. And then the uncertainty in the industry. Every time someone spoke, and it's, I found it very frustrating, reality, but frustrating. You go and talk to a retailer and a builder. Normally you're talking about sales and your value add and your products and innovation. All anyone wanted to talk about was silicosis and what was happening to the industry. So the first hour of your conversation, that's all you spent your time on. And when you're in sales, as you know, it's like you're trying to get out there and do deals and write business and et cetera, and you're not doing it. So that added to it. But we've got a lot of great people, and I think they believed in the brand, they believed in the story, they believed in the transition process, and you just had to keep communicating, which is what we're still doing. Just over communication, be honest with where things are at. where we're going, what we're doing, what we're not doing, what the issues are that we're likely to have. At the same time, trying to keep people, pumped up and motivated through the process. So it wasn't easy, and it wasn't easy for anyone in the industry. Not easy for my competitors. Not easy for the builders. Not easy for the retailers. And I think sometimes, my view is the government forgets how important the building industry and the kitchen renovation industry is to Australia. And that's just left aside. That the impact that this has had has been huge, and no one's really recognised it. And the government talks about building an incremental 1.2 million houses, which is great on the front pages. But where are the people? Where are the materials? Where's the process? Who's getting rid of the red tape? Between red tape and the cost of building a house, it's about 50% when you look at what you have to do from a regulation point of view and a taxation point of view. Yeah. So houses can't be built because we have, we had processes 5 years ago, 10 years ago that would take 24 hours to get through with councils and state governments, now take 2 years. Yeah. And their solution is to put more government bodies on top of government bodies. And no one makes a decision. Yep. And it's very frustrating because they never quite get the right people around the table to say, well, okay, let's now make a real difference because we need more houses in Australia. And everyone agrees we need more, but it's not happening. We're building less houses now than what we were previously.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, I think the statistics came out last month or the month before. I think it was about 14,500 building approvals in June or May across the country, which is horrific. Such a low number. So it's certainly not going in the right direction, that's for sure.
No, exactly. They've got to recognise, if they need to bring immigration in to get skilled labour, they need to bring immigration in. But then they've got to work out, well, okay, you bring the immigration in to get the skilled labour, they also need housing on top of it. So it can magnify the issue, but you've got to address it and address it constructively and realistically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, David, talking about the new products that you've got in range, and just in a comparison, obviously Caesarstone being market leader in what it does, but with the products that you brought in today, how do they compare against your competitors? And are there any distinct advantages of the Caesarstone products versus your competitors that stand out?
Look, I think the thing that I say to our people, and you look at industries as they mature, we all start to look like each other because everyone's copied all the good parts about what everyone does. And what I say to our people are, there's maybe a dozen different things that make a good distributor, from, technical support to backup to being responsive to customers to distribution, holding stock, all the things What we have to do is do all of those 12 things better than everyone else. And on top of that, what we've got to be is continue to be the most innovative company in the marketplace. So we're continually coming up with colours that differentiate us and our competitors. And some of that might be technology, but a lot of it is colour development. And, I really get inspired by classical marble. And, I think, and we're not trying to replicate marble products, but we look at marble and say, look at some of the quarries and say there's just some unbelievably magnificent products that we can come and be inspired by and introduce in an affordable way to a consumer in Australia, which I think is the big thing that we've done over the years, that we've made this a very affordable product. And we're a small part of the cost. The fabrication side of it is a big part of the cost. It's usually about 2/3 of the cost versus the material. So we've tried to work with fabricators to get their optimization to a place where they can reduce their costs. And that's why fabricators in a lot of cases like dealing with us, because the more volume they put through, the more optimization, the more use of offcuts, the lower their cost base, the more affordable the product becomes. And so we continue to work in those areas. But I think innovation is the big factor. You've got to be innovative. And we know the window's short. It used to be 9 to 12 months before a competitor would be able to copy our colours. Now it's 3 months. So we've got to move quickly, and we've got to tick all those other 12 boxes better than anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that in the tiling industry over the time as well, in the years that I was involved, back in 2003 when I first started selling, ceramic and porcelain tiles, it would be, 2, 3, 4 years before you would see a competitor, try and copy the color or the style or the aesthetic feel of the product. And I think today it's, it's not much dissimilar. It's probably 90 days before, something might come in from Spain or Italy, and then all of a sudden, there'll be a copy from China that's come in that is just as good, but it's 2/3 cheaper in price.
Yes.
And that's the challenge, right? Is trying to keep up with the market as quickly as you can to be able to capitalize on getting the best product out there at a really, really fast pace before your competitors start knocking on your door. So,
Yeah,
I get
and
that.
we, most of us in this industry need to be, we need to be a little bit like Apple.
Yeah.
The only time anyone knows about the new product is the day it's released,
Yes.
because the day it's released, it's about to be copied that afternoon. So
Yeah.
you got to give yourself as much head start as you can, and that's the way we've got to look at it as well. It's not easy to do because you have trade shows and you want to show people your new product, but if that new product's not available for 6 months, you've got a problem. And we see it in in the US a lot, where competitors will go to a big trade show, a CABUS or whatever, put product up on walls, and before they've even launched it, 5 competitors have copied it and launched it before them.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the business today. So you've got to stay on top of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. David, just a couple of final questions before we wrap up today. One of the really important topics we're touching on in the past few of our episodes is the environmental and sustainability impacts of manufacturing. Are there particular things, or what particular things are Caesarstone doing at the moment, or have been doing recently, to address both of those sort of areas of the area of, I suppose, challenging topics that we're facing in the world?
Yes, it's a big subject, and it's something that we're focused on as a group internationally, and as a manufacturer even more so. So what we've looked at is what's our statement from a sustainability point of view, what's our statement from a recycling point of view, and maybe one advantage of a few out of the transition is the fact that we're now using recycled glass predominantly in our product. So that, from an environmental sustainability point of view, is a fantastic step forward. And what we then look at outside of that is everything from a manufacturing point of view to a transport point of view to just general distribution, our showrooms. What can we do that's going to help the environment, that provides that that greener future, I suppose, which is, it's never easy. And we can all produce 300-page reports, which a lot of us do, I suppose, in reality, but it gets down to what are you actually doing. So what we're looking at is, and focusing on things like water recycling, which we can control, the glass recycling with our factories, what we do from a transportation point of view, whether it's electric, whether it's other options, and they're all got positives and negatives with them. And some of you things are positive today, someone's on the front page tomorrow is a negative. So you're always trying to work it through. So we just try and simplify it a bit and just say, look, there's 3 or 4 key areas that we think we can work on from a sustainability point of view. And recycling is obviously one of the big ones that we're focused on. And this transition has given us an opportunity to move even further in that direction.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, look, it's I mean, you're dead right. There's so many different reports out there from many different companies, and I think everyone has a heart of gold when they put pen to paper and they're trying to work out how can they actually have the best impact. But certainly the spin-off from those reports is that there is so many other, impacts along the way that can influence whether or not it can be implemented. There could be job losses. There could be a whole host of other things that impact the business that are negative just to implement something that is a sustainable practice. So it's trying to find that right rhythm and balance in implementation. So I completely see that. I know how hard it must be for businesses today to do that.
It's very difficult, and you just look at some of the changes in the housing industry, and look in Victoria with the NCC, which is will become national at some stage, and discussions around gas usage or non-usage. The house prices with the recent changes for first homeowners has gone up 25 to 30,000 in Victoria. They've almost become unaffordable. It's tough at the moment unless we're helping our kids. It's very difficult, and every time the government puts in more regulation, and look, I sort of get it. And as you say, there's a balance. There's a balance between sustainability, recycle, all the good things, all the green things, all the things we'd like to do, but there's also affordability of housing, and I think we've just taken it too far. 7-star ratings and it's like that's great in theory, but the reality is it makes it more and more difficult for anyone to actually own a home. And if it keeps going, people won't own homes. Our kids will be renting. And now, you look at the renting statistics, and I think, last 3 years or whatever, it's gone up 50%. So that's becoming unaffordable. So where do we go as a country eventually? If you can't afford to rent, you can't afford to buy, and we keep adding costs to the structure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough space. I mean, I volunteer for the SES up here in Queensland, and I was having this exact conversation 2 weeks ago because we do weekly training, and a young fella who's in his late 20s, he and his partner who are about to get married, they want to have kids. I think he said they put in 29 different offers in the last 6 months for places, and they've missed out every time. And they're looking at just 2-bedroom units for $500,000. And 29 offers. And the other part of it is people just get so disenfranchised with the process, they just give up. And they just go, you know what, what hope do I have of actually owning a property ever? We may as well just hang on to that money and do something else, which doesn't give the industry, it doesn't surround the industry with positivity because then, we've got complete shifts occurring in how people live in the country, and that has impact on a flow-on impact on everything that we do and every building product that's produced or manufactured and sold in the country. So it's certainly there's no easy answer, but certainly the action needs to be different than just let's have 7-star green rated projects everywhere, and we'll look great. As you said, you said a number of times, looks great on the front page, but then behind the scenes it just doesn't work.
Yeah, we don't want to end up in a nation where if you went back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everyone's first desire was to own their own home. And we're starting to educate the generation under me and those 20-year-olds, etc., that it's impossible. It's unaffordable, impossible. And so they will give up. They'll travel overseas, do whatever they need to do, etc. And they just won't have that dream anymore, which I think is just wrong. Yeah. So we've got to find ways to, try and tick some of the boxes, but never all the boxes because it's impossible. And balance it out a bit better. And I think one of my frustrations in business and probably personal life is just the minority wins every time. The 1%. Beats the 99 every single time, no matter how ridiculous the 1% is, it wins. Which a lot of times causes the wrong solution to be put in place, and people should stand up more and say, well, we'd like to do that, but we can't. It makes no sense. No? Practically. Yeah, practically.
Exactly. Well, touching on that, mate, before we wrap up today, 2024, I know we're nearly nearly halfway through. Any big BHAG moments for yourself? You got any big plans and goals for the year? And give us a look in on you. What's happening?
Well, firstly, I'm going to Greece in 2 weeks, so
there you go.
I'm excited. I'm excited by that. I've never been. It'd be nice to get some warm weather. Nice. So, from a personal point of view, it's it has been a big few years. So we decided to escape for a couple of weeks, which
excellent,
which will be good. From a business perspective, it's getting through this transition. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs between now and December. The building landscape is challenging at the moment, and with everything that's going on, it's made it more challenging. So we just want to make sure that we're in great condition by the time we get to 1 January. We've made a full transition with our products. We've enhanced our porcelain range. We've got our people positive. We've got our people focused. We've got hopefully an industry that's starting to turn the corner sometime next year in terms of the building industry generally, renovation industry, and maybe some positives sometime next year with interest rates, which will help. But we just want to be in a position where we're well geared up to make a big difference by the time we get to 1 January. Just go through the ups and downs for the next 5 or 6 months, which there'll be some. And make sure we're in great shape by 1 January with products and colours and technology that people love.
Nice. Well, David, mate, thank you so much for being on today. Before we finish, though, we always like to try and connect our guests or guest businesses up and companies up with the community. If people wanted to reach out to you directly and or Caesarstone Australia, what's the best way to get a hold of both options?
Yes, go through our website, so Caesarstone.com.au. So if they jump on our website, there's a whole series of information about the company, about contact information, about our products, about sustainability, about our new launches, etc. So that's a great place to start.
Nice.
And then I have a habit, sometimes a bad habit, of if people want to communicate with me, I'll call them back directly. I have no issue with that. I prefer to talk straight up. When we've got issues, we'll address them straight up, etc. So they can communicate through to me through that website as well, and they will get a response.
Beautiful, mate. That's fantastic. Well, David, mate, I really appreciate your time today, particularly now that I know that you're going to Greece in 2 weeks, because I know what it's like leading up to heading away for a holiday. Everything just compounds very quickly, and you're like, oh my God, I've got to get it all done before I get on a plane. But, mate, have a great time. Thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it, and really appreciate you sharing the journey that you've been on through, with Caesarstone from the beginning, and then also the latest piece with silica dust and silicosis and the transitions that Caesarstone has made in a really positive way in the industry here, and I'm sure the community will really enjoy listening to the episode and learning more about how the new products work and look in kitchen and bathrooms.
All good, Mark, and nice to talk to you. And good luck with the podcast moving forward, and with your listeners.